Welcome back, Tyrants. One Piece chapter 994 is out, and wasn't it a fantastic chapter? Let's go ahead and start talking about it. Now we can all finally celebrate as the Pound cover story, the All My Family cover story is over. Chapter 994 brought the final chapter, and pretty much Capone and Lola Chiffon, everyone getting away from the Marines. They're sailing away as a happy family. Which is, it's great to see everyone's back together, families all happy, and they've escaped. Now, the one thing I'm not entirely sure of is if this has any tie-in to the main story. Normally, throughout the course of a cover story, we will see something that ties it back into the main story, as in, something that'll carry it back forth to the forefront. Like with Jinbei, we saw him traveling for a while, then eventually we saw him find a poneglyph, and he ended up giving that poneglyph to Big Mom. But for the All My Family stuff, we haven't really seen anything that links it back to the main story. They stopped off in Dressrosa at some point, but we didn't see anything happen there, so I'm not really sure if anything will come of this, but it is good to see that the story has finally ended. We have 6 chapters until 1000, so we're probably going to see some cover story requests, which I would love because it's been a little while since we've gotten any of those. We start the chapter off right where we ended in 993, and that's with Kiku losing an arm. Now, Kinemon does something really cool and activates his fire style and cauterizes Kiku's wound, pretty much off the bat. Now, does this mean that Kiku can't get that arm back? I'm not entirely sure. I think if Law wanted to, he could still put that arm back on there, but we'll see if this makes it more permanent. It doesn't look like Kiku took any other damage other than losing the arm and losing the sword. And I know that there was some confusion with the sword that Kiku has now, but as far as I can tell from 993 and previous chapters, the sword Kiku was using had a black guard and a somewhat flower-shaped hilt. The sword Kiku was using in 994 is a white guard and a circular hilt. So I do think that Kiku found a different sword. Whether it was just one lying across the battlefield, whether there was another one, on the belt, I'm not entirely sure. I don't see another sheath for a different sword, so I would be more inclined to believe this is just a sword from the battlefield. We then get to see a beautiful set of panels by Oda. Some of the scabbards, some of Kaido in dragon form, some of Kaido in human form. Just all of these panels are really great. So much detail went into these panels, but the idea that, Kaido's kind of giving this speech, he's commending the scabbards for what they've been able to do so far and just their resolve. It looks great, and it makes Kaido more interesting as a character. The more and more we see Kaido kind of interact with just about anybody, it makes me so much more curious about what kind of character he has. I'm still not entirely sure what kind of dad Kaido is, because he still refers to Yamato as his son, and I'm wondering what causes him to do that. He just seems so much different than kind of the aggressive pirate type that we kind of get the idea that he is early on, which is fantastic. I love seeing so much character being given to Kaido, because I think Kaido deserves it. I think Kaido is a character that deserves more than just strength. He deserves depth and intelligence, and I think we're getting that. Now, as he's transforming back to his base form, I'm not going to call it a human form just because we have no idea. I don't really subscribe to the idea of Kaido having multiple different forms as far as, human, Oni, poneglyph, all that stuff. I'm not entirely sure on that, but we'll just go base form for now. As he transforms back, he gives us this nice speech about the samurai's unwavering resolve and how it was admired by Roger and Whitebeard and how he even admires it. And he then gives us a really nice quote, which is that in death, humans truly attain perfection. And that is something that really sticks to Kaido's character, because Kaido's always been about dying, but not just dying in a glorious fashion. He jumped off a sky island and tried to kill himself. He's known to start fights with some of the strongest people, Marines, Yonko, and try and die that way. And the comment he makes after he jumps off the Sky Island about Whitebeard being able to die in such a glorious fashion. It makes sense. This is something that Kaido would say. And it looks like he was either looking for that death in the scabbards, or he's looking to give that death to the scabbards. Of course, I think that as of last chapter, he's realized that they can't give him that death, so it looks like he's going to give them that death. And he even says, let's end this. And I think the fact that he's gone back to his base form means that this fight will be shortly ending. And this makes me think a lot of the Luffy versus Kaido fight, because in the Luffy versus Kaido fight, we have Kaido in dragon form and Luffy in his strongest form going all in. And once Luffy's done going all in, Kaido transforms back to his base form and he one-shots Luffy. Now, I don't think he's going to be one-shotting any scabbards, but I do think he's going to make quick work of them, just like he did with Luffy. I think this is the point where Kaido starts, dwindling the numbers until the rest of the fighters get here, until like Luffy and Law and Kid get up there. So this is probably going to be the last few chapters of scabbard fighting. Now, next we get to one of the funniest parts of the chapters, and probably one of the funniest parts in Wano. These new gifters. Now you can tell Oda's just been having a fantastic time creating all of these gifters. You have Hold'em, you have Speed, you have so many different gifters and headliners, just with these off abilities, these so-called zone users. But when you look at like what they have and what they can do, you just can't help but laugh at them. So we meet Hamlet and Fortrix, and Hamlet is a giraffe smile and Fortrix is a chicken smile. And these two smile users, these two gifters, are probably some of the most unlucky gifters we have seen, because Hamlet is literally like the head of a giraffe. So you have an entire giraffe body behind him and he's just the head of it. And it makes me think of a few things, because one, you can see that the giraffe is struggling to hold this human up, because normally it would just be a giraffe's head, but it's a whole human as a head. And like you see like the struggle lines and everything, and I'm like, that poor giraffe is struggling so much. And Fortrix is just an abomination. I vote for Fortrix being the most unlucky gifter, because his situation is just, it's terrible. Like I don't even want to go into how bad Fortrix is, but it's all hilarious. And the reactions from like Sanji and Jinbe are hilarious too, as far as the way they spawn, the way they actually, manifest their power is annoying and stupid, and it completely is. And I love how stupid One Piece can be sometimes. I really do. And this is like the top tier stupidity of One Piece, just this nonsense right here. And it even makes me think back to like how Kaku felt when he got his giraffe devil fruit, and how kind of goofy it was. And now we have this, which is like a whole different tier of goofy and stupid. I wonder sometimes, like, are the gifters really happy about their abilities? Like, I don't know if they're given a choice to like kind of go through this process. I think for the most part they're probably forced to eat a fruit, and then where they land on the scale depends on how the fruit interacts with them. So I doubt they have a choice really. I think they're kind of just going along with what they have. But I don't know, that for me, I would absolutely hate to have any kind of smile devil fruit. They all seem terrible in their own way. This scene also reminds me of a really funny fact that in like chapter 698, I believe, Law is kind of explaining Kaido in like Kaido's name, Kaido's chance of being defeated, things like that. And he mentions that Kaido has like 500 Zoan users in his army. And we're all freaking out because we're like, Zoans are the physically strongest of the devil fruits. Zoans are beasts, and to have 500 of them underneath him, that's crazy. And we get here and like these are the 500 Zoans that we've been fearing this whole time. Hamlet and Fortrix, Briscola, Hold'em, Speed. These are the people that we were afraid of. And it's like it's so hilarious to think about, because at that time we were genuinely like, that's going to be a hard fight. And now we're looking at these guys get cleared in one panel. Briscola, one panel. Hold'em, I think, Hold'em got one shot by Luffy. So it's, all these Zoan users mean absolutely nothing. We then move on to Queen and what Queen's been doing on like the base floor here. Now we see that the Ice Oni is spreading and taking over more people. Even one of the samurai get infected and they try to kill themselves off before they start attacking others. And Hirogoro says, wait, I'll take you out when I need to, but don't do it early. We might have a cure. And that makes me think that they will eventually find a cure or make a cure at some point. So they're pretty much prolonging the death before we get the cure. Now, Queen pulls out an antibody, and he says that that's the only one that exists, and he gives it to Apu. And he creates this kind of sick game where it's like, Apu, if you lose that, you die. But if no one else gets it, everyone dies. And it's interesting because we kind of had this idea that Queen was kind of sadistic and a bit of a torturer. So this is definitely, in the Queen's wheelhouse. And it's good to see. It's good to see that part of Queen just because, that was a part of Queen that was built up from the start. And to see that it's still a part of Queen is good. It's good to know that he's consistent. As far as the antibody, I'm somewhat skeptical of it being the final answer. Just because I don't see why Queen would give them the solution. I think he has more up his sleeve than that. So I'm wondering if that's even the right antibody, if that'll actually do anything, if it matters. Of course it could be the right and they could find a cure through that, but also I wouldn't put it past Queen to lie for more entertainment. Now, the other thing I have in mind is that I don't think Chopper can create a cure from that antibody that fast. So I'm wondering if we're going to need Law to come in and help. Because Law can analyze things at a molecular level. Law can break everything down with his power. So if anyone's going to be able to create that fast, it would be Law. So I'm curious to see if he's going to show up. I don't think Marco can really do anything in this case, just because he's more about regeneration. He's less about, creating and experimenting and more of just healing. So if Law comes in, I can see them making a actual cure for this. The other thing I noticed is that the way Queen kind of treats Apu is, it makes me think that anyone below the Toby Roppo are expendable. Because we see that he's sacrificing the beast pirates right now. Pretty much anyone who's down on this floor is susceptible to the Oni plague. And he's not worried about that at all. In fact, he's kind of using it to his advantage. Saying, you guys aren't really useful besides this, so do something useful. So for Apu, this seems like a good reason to, start to switch sides. Because pretty much Queen's just said that you are also expendable. He's also got an army of people chasing him, so if he loses the antibody, they're going to kill him anyway. So it looks like this would be the time for Apu to switch sides. It also looks like there's going to be a longer Zoro and Apu interaction, whether that will result in a fight or them joining together like kind of how Zoro and Drake did. I'm not entirely sure, but we're going to see more of an interaction between those two. And the end of this chapter is reserved for Yamato. And I really enjoyed this part of the chapter as well. I enjoyed the whole chapter in its entirety, but each part had its own kind of level of enjoyment. And this I really enjoyed. So we have Yamato pretty much telling Shinobu and Momo kind of who she is and what relevance she has to Oden. And so she tells them that she was present for the execution and that she was even present when Kaido was going to throw Momo off the roof. And I think this is the point in which Shinobu and Momo realize they can trust Yamato. Because not only is she saying that, she knows the struggles of Oden, but she's saying she's here to help protect. And in the midst of talking, she gets hit with a giant blast that she seemingly tanks with no issue. I mean, you see the bruises and stuff that people get in One Piece when something happens, not necessarily damage, but just when something happens. She has those, but she looks unaffected by all of that. And then she launches a swing of her club, which seems like it throws kind of like an air shock towards this porcupine gifter. And I have no idea how that works. Usually we don't see blunt weapons act that way. So what she just did there, I'm not entirely sure if that's like Rio based, if that's, you know, a part of a different ability she has or what. And from the look on Sasaki's face, he's not sure either. He looks overly shocked at what just happened, which to me tells me that either Yamato has been restricted from using her full power this entire time, or she's just never gone all out, because I would expect them to know what Yamato can do. The way they interact with Yamato makes it seem like all the Tobiropo have seen what she's capable of and kind of dealt with it before. So the fact that Sasaki has that kind of shocked face means that this is something new. This is something different that he hasn't seen before. And it makes me wonder if like the cups were holding her back, if it's possible that that leans more towards her having a devil fruit, and that's why she wasn't as strong, because the cups were weakening her. I'm not entirely sure. It does open up a lot of possibilities, but the thing I really like about this part is that Yamato declares herself as Yamato and not Odin. And not to say that she's given up being Odin or giving up the idea of Odin, but she's saying, I am also Yamato, which is really cool. I think one of the things that was making me hesitant about her joining the crew was the idea that she wanted to do it as Odin. If she wants to do it as Yamato, and if she still has the wherewithal to declare herself Yamato, I think that makes her a more interesting and a better character, instead of just someone who's trying to be Odin. You know, this adds depth to her character. So with that, I definitely see her joining the crew. And this makes me like her character a whole lot more. Even though I already did, I like it a whole lot more now. Now, when I think about Yamato being at the castle, essentially when Momo and everyone died, quote unquote died, is that I wonder if Kaido saw Yamato there. I wonder if that had any kind of, I don't know, influence on what Kaido did with Momo. Because at first, Kaido was going to drop Momo from the roof, but instead he threw him into the castle and into the fire, which at the time we kind of thought was weird. But I wonder if Kaido seeing Yamato there had any influence on that. I think that would be an interesting way to kind of look at that portion of the story and kind of look at Kaido as a father. It's like he sees his own child down there, so that gives him an ounce of, I wouldn't say compassion, but it makes him change his mind about how he wants to kill Momo. So that would be cool to see. But that's how the chapter ends. Like I said, it was a fantastic chapter for me. I really enjoyed that. If you guys did too, if you have any comments, questions, leave them in the comments below. Feel free to like, dislike, subscribe, and have a great day. Bye.